Part 3, Chapter 8. Sunday morning, sunlight came streaming in the little windows of the boat, waking me. It was the first perfectly clear, perfectly sunny day in months. By 10, Golden Gardens Park was filling up with people picnicking, flying kites, lying on the beach. I walked over to Market Street and killed time at the Secret Garden books. The only book I've ever bought was the Christmas gift from my dad, but they never chased me out, which is why I like the place. Just before noon, I headed over to the library. Phrases had been swirling around in my head, phrases I didn't want to think about. Terrorist cells and red alerts and soft targets. Arnold had talked about them, and my dad had talked about them. And there was stuff in the newspaper almost every day. I was getting out. Before I got out, I had to know just exactly what it was I'd been in. I was there when the library doors opened, so I was able to get a computer with internet access. I sat down, logged onto Google, and typed in the word smuggling. Instantly, the screen filled with websites on the smuggling of drugs and people. None were what I was looking for. I went back to the main Google page and typed in what I should have typed from the start: plastic explosives. Immediately, the page came alive. I scanned the options, swallowed hard, and opened one. A long article giving the whole history of plastic explosives filled the screen. Some of it I couldn't follow, but not all of it. Phrases jumped out at me that made me go cold all over. Easily molded, putty-like, odorless, hard to detect. But I remembered what my dad had said to me months before. By boat, the Ballard locks were 5 minutes from Shill's Hole Marina. The Aurora Bridge was 30. Ferries and cruise ships were always moving through Puget Sound. Terrorists would have trouble smuggling 100 pounds of explosives into the country all at one time, but if they got the explosives in little by little, and if they could get help from someone who didn't know what was going on, they could succeed. My head started spinning, and the ground seemed to move underneath me the way the tiny dancer moves in a storm. My breath started coming faster and faster. My hands were gripping the sides of the table so tightly my knuckles were white. I didn't know how long I sat there, but when the woman across from me leaned over and asked if I was all right, I snapped out of it. I let go of the table. "I'm fine," I told the woman. I logged out and left the library. I had to find a place where I could sit down by myself and think everything through. But the sunny day had brought people out everywhere. Then I remembered Cloud Park on 58th Street. It wasn't much more than a bench surrounded by some flowers, but it was close, and it would be empty. When I reached the park, I sat down, my head still spinning. I had to decide what to do, and I had to decide fast. The obvious thing was to go to the police. But if I did, and if it turned out it wasn't plastic explosives, the cops would have a laugh over that. Idiot kid turns himself in, thinks he's involved in terrorism, when he's just a small-time drug dealer. I could throw the stuff, whatever it was, into the Sound. That would get rid of it and keep the police out of it. Then I remembered the way the fat guy had looked when I said I was going to do that, and I felt fear go through me. That's when I thought of Melissa. Her dad was a lawyer, a hotshot lawyer. Considering the money he had, he'd been my dad's best friend. He'd said he'd wanted to help. To get to him, I'd have to talk to Melissa first. I fished a couple of quarters out of my pocket and walked over to Walter's. On the wall in the back by the bathrooms were a payphone and a phone book. I looked up her number, dropped in 2 quarters, and punched the buttons. The phone rang, and her voice came on the answering machine. "No one's home right now. Leave your number, and we'll call you. Bye." I didn't have a number to leave. When I hung up and turned around, I saw Kim Lawton, my mom's old friend. "Hey, Chance," she said, smiling. "Good to see you. Have a seat. Let me make you a hot chocolate or an espresso if you want." I shook my head. "I can't, Kim. I've got to go." "Come on, Chance. I never see you anymore. What's the big hurry? Sit down. Tell me what you've been doing." For a moment, I thought about telling her everything. It was eating me up on the inside, and I wanted to get out. But what would be the point? She couldn't help me. "I'll come tomorrow," I said. "Really, I will. But I've got to go now." "You promise?" "I promise." Once outside, I headed down to the marina. I didn't want to go sit on the boat, but what else could I do? I walked down to the water and then crossed the marina parking lot. Finally, I could see Pier B. Then I stopped. Leaning against a chain-link fence was the fat guy. I took a deep breath and then walked up on him. "What did you find out?" I said. He motioned toward the parking lot. His silver Acura was parked there. "Come on," he said. "Let's go for a ride." He pulled out of the parking lot and headed along Seaview Avenue. He made the turn toward Sunset Hill and then drove slowly up Golden Gardens Way where Melissa lived.